Good type is family. Just like yours and mine, they come in all different sizes and shapes. We already talked about the display type unit. It's typically one font or just a few fonts. Next size is the basic family unit, 4 fonts. These actually, at various times, have been marketed as office fonts, because within those 4 basic weights, you basically have everything that you need to format a Word document, for instance. But as professionals, we need to look to the wholesome family and above. Typefaces that are typically 10, 12, maybe 20 variations, where you get both the upright grades in weight, and you also get italics. And this helps us take that voice and identity within the typeface and work out typographic details. Little matters of differentiation that are important, I think, for professional content are things like having a good subheading, weight, or variation. Then there's sort of a newcomer, I think, to family structures in the last 5 years at least, which is just describing as a family system because I don't have a better name for it. These are typefaces that I suppose where their structure is based on the concept of the typeface itself. So Postorama is a good example. There are 7 weights here and a text weight as well. But each of those 7 come in 9 different flavors. And those flavors are inspired by or representing basically a century of futuristic reference points, you know, like sci-fi and poster art and so on. It's kind of cool. Rosella, this was released today, I think, by Monotype. And this has 6 weights, but this is a layering font, so you can actually layer up many more combinations. This concept, you know, build it yourself, stackable typefaces, is becoming really popular and a lot of fun. This is Taberna from Latino Type. It's a really good example, I think, within this genre. So it ships with display type, sans serif, script, and icons and visuals and things that go together with that. I think what's nice about this is if you think about it as a small business owner or a graphic designer on a budget, this typographic system is already pre-curated, right? And it reduces the number of decisions that you have to make or your client has to make whenever you put it in their hands. We see a lot of this in small business, hipster, coffee culture, but it's cool, it's good, I like it. And then we have super families, so we're talking about typically 40 or more weights. So this is really the stomping ground of professionals. Superfamilies, I suppose the invention, is often attributed to Adrian Frutiger, who designed Frutiger and Avenir and others. In the 1950s, he was working for de Berny and Pignon in France, and they were selling a lot of Futura. At that time, it was called Europe, but it was Futura in France. It was Europe, sorry. And he wasn't that happy about it because he thought it was quite a dated design. And he also thought that it had a little bit too much personality for all of the use cases where it was being used. And so with the help of his boss, he got the go-ahead to create Univer. There's a couple of interesting things about Univer. First of all, Univer's personality or voice is intentionally toned down. So Frutiger didn't want to bring too much personality to the typeface, because really what he wanted to do was to create a tool for the first time, I think, for designers, commercial designers, where they could nudge the weight of the font up and down, or they could nudge the width of the font in and out, right? And so this concept of a superfamily was really smart and actually quite a breath of fresh air. It was really popular at the time. The nice thing for graphic designers is no matter what space they had to work with, changing the typeface through the different options available didn't distort that voice. It always looked like Univer, and it always looked cohesive. And so we take this for granted now, I think is my point. The only thing that didn't really catch on was the numbering system. FF Info display. Eric Spiekerman, Ole Schaefer put this together, and the idea behind the display was that it would be for signage in particular. I think they were aiming to get something like a 10 to 15% reduced width on some other signage fonts at the time. And you can see it's very space-saving, quite compressed. But also there's some nice little features in here that speak to its distance reading concept. And if you look, there's a little serif on the I and on the J in places where you wouldn't normally expect to see them. It's to help with the differentiation at distance. And whenever you look at the text part of the superfamily, these come in all of the weights you would expect. There's actually different character designs here, done away with some of those little details. And there's an entirely different G, a spectacle-shaped G. And so the reason why I'm showing you this is there's a lot of thought goes into superfamilies, a lot of planning. Then next. So Din has been a super popular font. For 100 years it was popular and it only had 2 weights. Akira Kobayashi and Sandra Winter picked it up and developed it into a workhorse family. But they didn't stop there. So now we have Dinex Slab, which is lovely. Dinex Stencil, which is new. Dinex Rounded, which as you can see is a nice complement to the regular and the, yeah. And Dinex that's pushed into other languages with the help of Nadine Shaheen on that one. So if you look at, if you stand back and look at the superfamily and the system, it's pretty impressive. It's expansive in multiple directions. There's a lot of work here. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of planning to get a typeface, I suppose that voice of the DNA working across multiple classifications and multiple languages. It speaks to the value, I think, of superfamilies, which for me are some of the most valuable type options that we have as a brand or a product and so on. The other thing is the distribution of these things aren't quite even either. There's a whole lot more display in the world than there is, superfamily and so on. Good type is family.